Hey, all right. How you doing? This is Michael Williams. I'm here again with I guess I can say, or I'll be able to say soon, Dr. Bhattacharya, right?
That's right.
Wow. Yeah, because you just recently you successfully defended your PhD
Yep.
long ago.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and you just recently did a talk, and so I want to talk about your talk first. And then maybe you can share a little bit about your experience defending your PhD, because I don't think we did an interview around that, right? We just talked about
Right. Yeah. Okay. So first of all, thanks a lot for this opportunity. Again, like this week, I've been really excited because my talk went really well on Monday. So it was a talk which I had to give about my entire research in some sort of like a nutshell, and it was a wonderful experience because I think I had the best talk of my life. So
it.
that was great. It was a talk in the afternoon, and a lot of people came in the talk, around 45 to like 50 people in the talk itself. So
Wow.
it was also the biggest crowd I've ever talked to in a academic sort of a setting.
Mhm.
So I was nervous, but I was also confident in the things I did, sort of like prior to giving the talk itself.
Mm.
One of the things I did a lot was actually, and this might sound funky, but I did a lot of like visualization,
Mhm.
and not only on the day of the talk, but before the day of the talk, in the last night before I actually had the talk. And one of the things I always do nowadays, and it's part of sort of a ritual for me now, is the thing that I always think about my audience sort of like clapping really hard at the end of the talk and really enjoying it and having really happy faces.
Yeah.
And that sort of like like puts me into a zone where I feel a lot more confident about the things I am about to say, and and what I have to say.
Mhm.
And that was a wonderful thing. And I did that for around half an hour the night
Mhm.
before, and almost for like 10 minutes before my actual talk sort of started. So that was a great feeling because I just came early in the room. I just sat down. I was like visualizing, looking around. It was empty at that point of time,
Mhm.
but I was just seeing people there explaining and sort of thinking in my mind how I would react to a few things. Sometimes I sort of like visualize that you have people smiling. Sometimes I also visualize like like people might be a bit glum and they might make some faces. So how do you like sort of explain to them that okay, I might be doing something wrong, so how I might want to emphasize the things I have to say in a different way to make people understand.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of like things about like visualization which was really important, which really helped me because I was in a good mood even before my talk. I was not
Mhm.
nervous because I had like sort of like visualized the fact. A second thing I did was starting slow. And again, it's part of my sort of my ritual now to start absolutely slowly, like
Mhm.
as slow as you can, especially your introductory slide and
Mhm.
your outline slide, like the things you are about to explain in some sense.
Mhm.
So taking your time there, just like take your like sweet time, just like extend and slow and just be in your mood and everything. Start slowly because that sort of like triggers the entire thing afterwards. Then you feel
Mhm.
like okay, now you are in the flow. Now you don't have to be nervous or tense, and you can just like take it from there. You can then increase your speed, which of course I did
Mhm.
at the later part of my talk. But I remember because I was using my cell phone and I was actually like timing myself, and I definitely spoke slowly for around 2.5 to like 3 minutes,
Mhm.
extremely slowly. So the first like three slides of my
Mhm.
talk, really slow.
Mhm.
Again, not trying to emphasize a lot, just take it slowly, just be in the mood, gauge your entire audience a lot, and then start saying. That was great. And once I was in the flow and I knew that okay, I have like started well, the thing was then your entire like body like posture sort of changes. You're confident now. You have to stand still with your entire like shoulders like like sort of like It's kind of
Squared.
projecting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're almost like projecting that. You move your hands, you almost like walk around slowly, interact with people. I asked a lot of questions. Well, not a lot, but at some intervals, in some sense, asked like a few sort of questions to the audience, and they interacted, which was fascinating, which was great, because that's the whole point of like giving a talk. If you know, if the audience is just like sitting there and just like gloomy or sleepy, makes no sense. So that was great. I interacted with people, and I had some really good interactions, a lot of like small questions,
Mm-hmm.
which was like completely like sort of like sprinkled around the entire talk. And once I did that, I think I improvised really well this talk. There were like a lot of things I did not think I would do per se at the
Mm-hmm.
actual start of the talk.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I have to like explain a few slides, a few graphs, and few things, and I sort of like came up with very nice analogies right at the go, like right at that moment itself.
Mm-hmm.
And people really appreciated that, because I know this because they actually came after the talk and said that that part of the slide I really liked, because you gave a really great example, and it really helped us to sort of like grab the thing that you were trying to sort of emphasize. Because like it's a lot of math, and sometimes it's hard to like explain it in words, but having good examples help a lot. So I did improvised really well in this talk,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in time. And although I felt I spoke slowly, I was not rushing. I
Mm-hmm.
actually I actually completed my entire talk almost 2 minutes before the end, and this talk was around like 18 minutes, and I had like 20 minutes to say my entire talk,
Mm.
which was fascinating, because in the entire talk I felt I was slow. I was not rushing at all. I
Yeah.
took a lot of pauses, like to almost like seeing what the audience is like sort of interpreting or not, and how they're like gauging it. I never felt rushed,
Yeah.
but that was the actual fascinating stuff, that I actually ended a lot earlier than I was expecting it to.
So there's a
So,
bunch of lessons that I want to point out here that we have talked about and worked on in the presentations, in the proactive speech system, specifically the proactive presentation system.
right.
Bunch of lessons. Let's walk through them quickly. One is that you visualize. Well, first you prepared, right? Like I'm sure you took time to prepare, so
Right.
we won't go into that, but you did prepare.
Right.
Then, at least a day before, you took time to visualize,
Yes.
right? And you did 30 minutes. I think before your dissertation defense, you did at least an hour,
I did. I
right?
did. Yep.
So this time it was 30 minutes. And one of the things that I mentioned in Imprint Impress, which is a part of the system, is to actually see the audience, see how the audience is responding to you.
Yep.
So you executed that by visualizing them clapping, and you took a step for having them clapping really hard.
Yeah.
And what that does is that makes you feel great.
Yep.
It makes you feel motivated and encouraged, and just by visualizing that, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So you did that the day before, then you did it the day of,
Right.
and you actually went to the room
Yes.
and did it. Now, not everyone watching this will be able to go to the space, but if you can, that's also going to be extremely helpful to actually physically go to the space, spend some time visualizing, and even physically practicing in that space. But
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Because then you won't have a lot of like jitters, like sort of like going to a new place, and you just don't know how it works. And this room was huge. It's a huge auditorium. So then you might get more nervous, because you have to stand in front of a lot of people, and the lights are almost on you, and it's almost like like you're just being there in the zone, and you're just surrounded by these people who are just listening to you. So it definitely helps being there early, if you
yeah,
can, of
if
course.
you can. Now, the other important lesson is that you started super slow. That's what I call it. Start super slow.
Yep.
And you do this anytime. You do this in presentations. You do it at the beginning of interviews. Temporarily, while you're working on your speech, you do it when you start to speak. You
Yes.
start super slow.
Yes.
And there's a couple of reasons. One is because generally people tell me if they start well, they generally tend to continue well. Doesn't mean you won't ever get stuck, but it just means if you start well, you continue well. I know the inverse of that is true, that when people start poorly, then it tends to go poorly, right?
Oh, yes.
So, so by you starting super slow, you said for the first 2.5 minutes or
Minutes.
so,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Started super slow. You took your time. You got yourself into the flow.
Right.
So another important lesson when you're starting a presentation, if you're standing up in a meeting, giving a comment, whenever, if you're feeling a little anxious, start super slow.
It is. Like take like a deep breath at the start and then start like super slow because you have the breath to sort of like have that airflow in, but you're also like extending and also like slowing down. And it
Right.
feels great actually. Like it feels so natural. Like it's not weird to start a super slow. When you are
Exactly.
starting, if you start fast, then that is very weird because then everything just comes like fast at you and you're just like lost in everything.
Exactly.
But starting slowly is so important because each word has a meaning at the start of the actual like talk. So
Yeah.
each word means something, and if you
Right.
can sort of like project that into the audience, that's wonderful.
Exactly. So you felt and you feel more in control. I know, and I still do this. I even do it with webinars. In fact, I noticed I did it in my last webinar. I started super slow for at least the first couple of minutes, and I wasn't nervous or anxious, but I just felt the need to start slow.
Right.
And I know that there have been times where I've stood up to make a comment in a big audience, or I've been on stage and I've started because my heart was just about to pound out of my chest. I'm like, why am I nervous? I love doing this. I mean, I love speaking to large groups, small groups, but I felt nervous.
Yeah.
I started super slow, and then you feel your heart rate start to slow down, and then you feel more in control, and then you
Yes.
can just get into then a more dynamic rhythm, right? A
Yeah.
little fast, a little slow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's also like the entire motivation of this doing this entire thing actually was due to a experience I had. And if I can just like share it like very quickly.
Mm,
uh, in my actual like third year when I was giving a talk again, a very nervous new talk. It was a lot of like this important people there, and this experience was so bad because I could not say the actual title of my talk.
mm,
That it was that bad, and the entire reason was that I tried to like force my words out right away, and it was a simple title. It just had like six words to it, but I just could not say out the title out loud in front of like 20 people sitting there, which
right.
felt bad at that time. But it also like taught me that you can't start super fast right at the go because that's a really bad thing to do.
Yeah.
That was kind of the yeah.
Now, I want to make mention that the content, the material that you're sharing is pretty technical, right? So,
Yes.
I'm, do you remember the title of your last talk?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Just to
Yeah.
give people an idea of what, I mean, we're not talking about life skill stuff, the kind of stuff that I deal with, right? Not that that's not important, but it's just that what you're dealing with is
Right.
pretty technical, because I know there are people out there who they're in accounting, or they're stuff that's dealing with numbers, or they're in engineering, and they say, oh, well, that might apply to what you do, but doesn't apply to what I do. But so let's tell us what your title was.
Okay, it's the most interesting title in the world. It's called Non-Convex Regularization for the Stochastic Dual Dynamic Programming Algorithm. Fun,
Okay.
right? Fun, right? I do it.
So I want people to know that no matter how technical the content of your presentation, all of this works.
Yep.
All of this works. Right? I mean, you probably can't get much more technical than that. I have
Yeah.
no idea what
What
any
that
of
means.
that means,
Right, exactly.
but but you were able to use all of uh, the principles and the concepts, techniques, the whole thing to make that work for you. All right. So starting slow, starting super slow. If you have a good start, you'll generally continue well. You don't continue to go slow the whole time. And what's another lesson? Something else that you talked about? You engaged your audience.
Right. Right.
Now, what did you do to engage your audience? You did.
So first of all, the thing I do is like look around in my entire audience, so that everyone knows that I'm actually looking around and seeing them, not to make them feel like in any under like any sort of like pressure, but to just tell them that I'm like seeing you. Move there and ask them like a very simple question, like a thing I just said like 5 slides back, which might be important in this slide. So just ask them some sort of, say, a rhetorical question, that they might be able to say yes or no, or absolutely yes or absolutely no, or like things like that. And that's really great because other people also like joins in, which was funny because I asked this a lady this question, and she unfortunately said the wrong answer. So this guy at the back like, no, 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 that was not that, it was this. I'm like, okay, great. So even the actual audience in the back is listening to my talk. Fantastic. So just engaging with like very simple questions, because you can't ask them hard stuff
That's
right
right.
in the middle of the talk. And also like you don't want to make them feel under some sort of
Exactly.
like a pressure, but trying to interact with the audience, telling them that, okay, this is a stuff I just talked about. Do you remember this? If yes, great, because this stuff I'm going to talk about next is based upon the things I just talked about a few slides back. So that sort of like engagement is great, because that also like motivates people to listen to you talk much more closely, because now
That's
they're like switched on, like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. So
that's
I
right.
think engaging it, not a lot, but at least, so I had like a 35 slides, and I engaged every audience after like 5 slides. That was
Right.
my a rule of thumb, in a sense. Just engage them 5 slides after to see if they're just like following the thing or not.
That's right. So keeping your audience engaged by doing something that we talk about in the Pro 90 speech system, proactive presentation system, asking questions. There's
Hmm.
different kinds of questions. There's rhetorical ones. There's simple ones, yes or no. There's ones where you actually want them to give the answer. You went out into the crowd.
Yep.
You made them feel comfortable. You weren't trying to embarrass them, ask them difficult questions, but you were focused on what I call serving your audience. You
Yep.
want to connect with your audience. You want them to walk away with something. You want them to remember what you're talking about,
Right.
right? We talk about VIC, value. Is this valuable? Is what I'm saying valuable to my audience? Impact. Am I having an impact? So you were watching your audience, tuned into them. Were they frowning? Were they smiling? Were they tuned in? Clarity, taking your time, articulating, asking questions to make sure they were tuned in,
Right. Absolutely. And
right?
like, and those guys were actually tuned in, because at the end of the talk they asked me some really important questions. Now, if those guys were not tuned in, then they would never have been able to ask those questions in the end, which is great, because that's the whole point you talked about, impact. Because when you are like giving a talk, at the end of the day, you want to have an impact to it. The
Exactly.
impact is what they are like. I mean, they sort of listen to me, but is there some theme or some kind of a message which has an impact on them? And that's
Mm-hmm.
like every talk is about now. Like every talk, every conversation has to have that impact, because that impact is the thing that leaves, that you actually leave with the people. Like people won't remember like slide 10 of my talk, or like slide 15 of my talk,
Right.
and all those like the mumbo jumbo stuff, but they will remember the actual theme of the thing. That, okay, this guy talked about this entire concept, which was interesting, and now I can implement it. So that is so important, because, and engaging in this way, I think, is one of the easiest ways to like make your audience much more sort of tuned in into your talk.
Exactly. Now, the last thing that I want to mention is that you took your time, but you finished early.
Yep.
So people feel like they have to rush. They feel like people are not going to listen or they're going too slow. The truth is, if you take your time and you go slow, you're going to be able to think more clearly. You're
Yep.
not going to get caught, especially if you start slow. Your thoughts will be clearer. Your thoughts will flow better. Your speech will be clearer and your speech will flow better.
Yep.
And you'll be more concise and precise. Therefore, you won't have to use as many words. You can take your time. You can pause. You can ask questions. You can do everything you want to do slowly, dynamically, right? Not too slow,
Right.
and actually get done faster.
It is. It is. And I call this the advantage of articulation. You become so much more articulate when you're doing this entire program. Because previously, I used to blabber a lot of words which had no impact or no value. You're just like saying those things because you're just in this mood. Things are not just coming out. You're just like filling in. But once you start slowly, you don't have to focus on those words which you used previously. Now you can just focus on the words you actually want to say. And that actually cuts down the number of words you're saying. So even though you are saying it slowly, the number of words is so less that your overall time is still less. And that is such an impactful thing because it's actually evenly spread out in the entire talk. Like, it's highly unlikely that you're articulate in one part of the talk and you're completely disarticulate in the other part of the talk. That never happens. If you're articulate and you start slowly, 95% of the time you will be articulate in the entire talk because it's just the flow. It's just the words like coming out right away. So that was
Exactly.
very interesting because I thought that I might exceed it, but I was not.
Yeah. Now, would you have been, and the answer is yes, you would have been able to do it. I mean, theoretically, you would have been able to do this, but you yourself, would you have been able to do this without coaching? If not, why not? If so, why or how?
I mean, so a coaching is important. And okay, the short answer is no. No, because first of all, a lot of like perseverance to do this thing. And you have to model yourself doing this thing. It's not at all easy to do this because you're like changing a complete habit. I used to speak a lot of words fast. Now I'm speaking less words slowly. It's a complete difference.
Mm.
Now, theoretically, if I had done this entire thing by myself for, say, a year or say maybe 2 years, maybe yes, I might have done this. The issue is life happens, and then you are never doing it for a year in an entire like zone and sort of like practicing it, and you never reach that sort of level where you get this entire advantage. And the amazing thing about this entire like coaching thing is it just takes like 3 months, you know, 3 months of like changing thing which I was like doing badly and now doing much better. And in a short span of time, using skills which are so easy, like it's not rocket science. It is as basic as it gets, but it has such impact. And I can like attest to it because I had to give some very important talks in the last few months. I had to like defend my thesis, which was a wreck, like a panic wreck, because it's a lot of things happening. I had to go to like 3 academic conferences to give talks in a large crowds. I have to network with a lot of people because you have to talk with a lot of your peers and explain your work. And then you had also a lot of interviews. So I've done it all in this last few months. And so I can attest it with complete confidence that these steps, without doing any sort of coaching, would have been infinitely harder than doing it with the coaching. So
Exactly.
absolutely.
That's what, yeah. So that's what I want people to know, that yes, theoretically, you can do this by yourself. It's going to take longer. It's going to take longer just because it's going to be more difficult for the average person to hold themselves in that container long enough to
Yeah.
be able to get to the level that you could get at in a relatively short period of time. If you've been struggling with your speech for decades, Say you're in your 20s, that's at least 2 decades, two and a
Yeah.
half decades. If you're in your 30s, you're talking 3 decades. We're talking 3 months. And you
Yeah.
get there before the end of the third month, but we're talking 3 months where you're going to be able to do high level stuff. I mean, I have people that they're just trying to get their first job. They're just trying to get interviews. They just want to be able to do better in giving status reports. And then I have people who are business owners, and I have people who are defending their PhD, doing conferences, big presentations, high level, high pressure stuff like you. And it works in a short period of time. And like you just said, the things that you're learning and implementing are relatively simple, right? What's
Yep.
not simple is changing your whole mindset and speech pattern. That's
Yes.
what takes the time and effort. And that's where the average person needs that extra bit of support to make
Right.
those changes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like in the first few months, it's hard because you're actually changing from something completely different. So it actually went worse in the first month. But then once you're doing it well enough and you're just like trusting the entire system, it comes out magically. And I can't say, like, there was this inflection point around the ninth or the 10th week.
Mhm.
Somehow I could feel myself that things are changing. When I was doing all this like talks, I was doing a lot of meetings
Mhm.
with my advisor and sort of talking a lot of things and long meetings, like half an hour of meetings and talking a lot, interacting a lot. I could see that I was slowing down. I was breathing. I was using my hands, things I've never done before in my entire life. So building on those experiences is what really helps, because I had a very good experiences when I was defending my thesis. I was not nervous at this time round when I was going to give this academic talk, because I knew that I've done well very recently.
Right.
And I can sort of like count down, sort of count upon all those experiences I had in that defense. And I
Yeah.
did exactly the same thing.
Yep.
like
Yeah.
like I took the deep breath, start slowly, smile, move your hands, and it's almost like this entire like pattern you have, which you can repeat it over and over and just
That's
making
right.
it better every time.
That's
and
exactly.
and that is a wonderful thing, because it's so easy, because it's not hard, because it's something you can just repeat every time. So yes, that's
Yeah.
something I'm actually a feeling, at least.
We have another client. You probably talked to him. He's an accountant, and he's been telling. I met with him just the other day, and he was telling me how he's got some presentations coming up, and he's just. I was cracking up laughing because of how confident he was. He was just like, "I'm just so, I'm just so confident that I know I'm going to do an excellent job. I'm going to do an awesome job."
Right.
So he's beyond the point now of needing to pump himself up, of needing
Right.
to feel confident. He is confident now,
Yep.
right? He's not trying to be, he is. Just
Yeah.
like you said, now you know, because of your experiences now, you know that you can do it. And now you're just going to keep getting better and better, more and more confident, where you might feel anxious, you might feel nervous sometimes, but you still know you're going to perform at super high levels,
Exactly.
despite feeling anxious,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. And you know what? Like, there might be a few instances where you might still like sort of like flounder a little bit, and
Yeah,
that's fine, because now you know how to overcome that right away.
exactly.
And that's the thing. You're almost like rigging the entire system, right? Even if you have like the small things which you just know that it might get stuck or something like that, you can still overcome it right away, because you know based on your experiences you've had earlier.
Exactly.
That I think is a major shift from where I was and where I'm
Yeah.
now in terms of.
That's very important. I want to mention that is that the one of the major advantages of going through this process is you feel more empowered, you feel more powerful, more in control. There's something called locus of control. And that is when you feel like your life is under your own control, you feel more confident. You feel better about yourself. You have a more optimistic view of life, right? You will perform better. When you feel like life is out of your control, then your confidence level is generally lower, you feel worse, you don't perform as well, right?
Right.
So what this process does is it gives you the tools and the experience and the knowledge and information that you need to bring your entire life, not just your speech, but your entire life under your control.
Yep.
Now you feel more powerful. And now you know, yeah, okay, I'm probably going to get stuck sometimes or whatever, but now I know what to do. I have the tools. So you still feel confident, and therefore you don't even get stuck as much because you feel more confident. And when you do get stuck, you know exactly what to do.
Exactly. It's a cyclic, a reinforcement thing. It just like it goes in cycles and just improves all the time, which is really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, man. I hope that this has been helpful to those of you that are watching. I just really wanted to clarify and, using one of our favorite words, articulate some very specific lessons that we can all learn from your recent experiences, high level experiences. So you might be watching this and you might be a student. So maybe your presentations are not as high level, it still works, right? Or you might be the CEO of a company. I've worked with CEOs of company doing multi-million-dollar deals. It still works, right? Or a PhD, or we have doctors
Right.
that we work with. This works for everyone because it's so simple, right?
Yes.
But you do have to do the work, and you put in the time, you did the work, you do your practices, and now you're seeing the results. It's like magic, right?
It is like magic, like as I said, you reach a point where just, I mean, the entire switch just flicks on,
Yep.
and you just feel it.
Yeah,
It's very hard to describe it, how, but it happens. And
exactly.
you can then feel it every time you're implementing it. And
Yeah,
it just gets better from then on. Like it never goes down. It always goes up, provided you're also doing all the things that it's taught, of course. And that's a
exactly.
must. But it always improves. And
Yeah.
I actually felt so well because when I was defending my thesis, one of the committee members said that that was the best talk he has ever heard in any defense talk
Now, wait a minute.
in his
Now, how,
20 years. Yeah.
okay, I was going to ask you. No, okay. This is worth highlighting right here. How many years has he been listening to PhD candidates?
22 years. He's a prof who is 55 aged now. Yeah.
22 years. And say for the audience again, what did he say?
So after the end of my talk, he said that that was the best talk in a defense he's ever heard in his life.
Wow.
Which was to me was, I thought it was he might be just a joking, but he said it again after the talk again that that was a wonderful talk, and I think it's the best talk I've ever seen, which was a big lift up for me because again I don't think it was my best talk, but if he thinks that, and if this is a guy who has been seeing talks for 22 years, I judge him very highly. Like I absolutely trust his
Yeah.
judgment. I would say that that was a very big sort of comment, and
Yeah.
it felt really nice.
So as we wrap up, if you're watching this and you're considering the Pro90 speech system and specifically coaching, the self-study is awesome. Everything is there. But if you want to accelerate your process and your progress, the coaching is the way, right? And this is not speech therapy. I'm not a speech therapist. This is not speech therapy. This is not treatment. This is enhancement. This is speech and presentation training to help you become an awesome, amazing, superior speaker. We're not saying you're going to be the best speaker in the world. I'm not the best speaker in the world, but we're going to help you become a great teacher where you have impact on the people that you're speaking to. And this is enhancement. And it's the difference between going to an interview and just not stuttering. Let's say all things are equal. You go to an interview, all things are equal. You're equally qualified. One person doesn't stutter. The other person's an excellent speaker. Who gets the job? right? The person who's an excellent speaker, not the person who just doesn't stutter. You just demonstrate. This guy says this was the best he'd seen. You'd gone from struggling and stuttering to becoming the best that he's seen in 20, in a matter of a few months.
Yep, it is.
If you can do it, then anyone watching can do it if they put in the time and work, if they trust the system.
Absolutely. And again, uh, the first few weeks are hard. You have to almost train yourself. But after that, things get easy and it just becomes so natural. Like it's not something artificial. It's not something you're imposing on yourself. You become that person, what you're trying to become. And that's an amazing feeling because then you don't think about how I'm speaking, how people is sort of judging me. You're always in the zone that you're trying to improve your speech every single time.
Yeah.
And that's a motivation you need to really do well in this
Yeah.
entire program.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bhattacharya.
Thanks a lot.
I
Thanks a
like
lot,
that.
Michael.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. And we'll be checking in with you over the next, because you're going to be making some transitions, right? You're going to be leaving soon to go to your job. I'm not sure when, right? You already
Yes.
have a job, pretty good job and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So I'm actually moving like in the first week of November.
Just
So
like next week or
next
something.
week, yeah. Like so it's kind of a busy time now, but yeah, I'll be moving in there, sort of like settling in, excited about my new job. And again, this job will have a lot of talks and interactions and a lot of things that you can like practice. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I also like to say very, very shortly that I had the opportunity to meet a lot of really nice people as part of this group,
Mm-hmm.
to sort of like practice a lot. And practicing is so important and something that really helped me.
Mm.
So to really be open here and to have the opportunity to like connect with so many different people from different parts of the world, but practicing the same things that Michael sort of like teaches us to sort of do in this entire program and seeing the effects, because I talked with Tracy uh, before she was going to defend, and she was very nervous,
Mm.
but we interacted for an hour and her speech was so good by the end of the hour thing. It
Mm.
also helped me a lot, but definitely helped her a lot. And again, like having the opportunity to like practice and so like listen to people and also share your experience is something that really helped me in this entire process. So
Yeah. And just to let you guys know, he's referring to another young lady who just successfully defended her PhD just last week or something, a week
yes.
ago, right?
Yeah.
So this is high powered stuff, and but it doesn't work if you don't do the work, right? So I can't take the credit. Yeah, I put the program together, but it is not going to work if you don't actually do the work. And I'm thankful that I have people that I'm working with that I enjoy working with, who's you're doing the work, and it's just so incredible, and it's so incredibly rewarding to actually see and listen to you guys and talk to you and see how you're just feeling happier, you're making advances in your career, and you're just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I do. It's been an amazing, amazing experience. So
yeah,
thanks to Michael for all this. So without your like guidance, I mean, of course, none of this happens. But I'm now feeling so much better that I'm a really good speaker of what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm the best speaker out there, but now I can speak sort of confidently whatever I have to speak, and that's a big empowering sort of an emotion. So
exactly.
for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, and we'll see you guys again soon.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Michael. Take care. Bye bye.